Hello there, welcome back to Critic AL Reviews, and today I'm going to be taking a look at why we are breaking up with the cinema. Number one, it's not you, it's me. Quite simply, audience tastes are changing. The way that we consume media is changing. Most films that I see these days have between a dozen and 20 people in the cinema. People just aren't turning up for these movies. In fact, the larger audiences tend to be for anniversary or older film releases. The Crow was one that had a decent turnout, the anniversary edition, not the remake, which is almost certainly going to be awful. What we need to consider is that there are going to be a few reasons for that, one of which is the pandemic. Pandemic locked everybody down. People could not go out to the cinema, could not go out in public places. We were broken of the habit of going to the cinema, and I think a lot of people have not got back into that habit. At the end of the day, you need to consider that the human race is habitually lazy, and we will not put more effort into something if we don't need to. The recent plan or strategy of simultaneously releasing films at the same time on cinema and streaming will not promote people to go to the cinema. People will generally rather see films on streaming in the comfort of your own home. Order a takeaway from Just Eat. Don't need to make the effort to go out and pay money to go see a film. It's even worse in America, where there's actually some distance between the people and the cinemas. Most likely you will have to drive unless you live in a major city. I can walk to my cinema in a space of around about 20 minutes. It's a 5-minute bus ride to get to Nottingham city centre from where I live. But in America, everything's very spread out. People have to make a lot of effort. They have to drive some distance to go to the cinema. And then add on top of that the price of tickets and snacks. It all gets very expensive, especially in a time when we are in a documented cost of living crisis. Again, worse in America, because I believe that in America you have to buy the snacks in the cinema. They are opposed to and will stop you from taking your own snacks in. Here in the UK, people can just load up your bag with cheap snacks and just carry them in, drinks or whatever. It's not a problem. In America, I don't think you have that option. Another thing to consider is the fact that, especially with the younger generation, things just aren't consumed in that way. The TikTok generation is now used to instant gratification, absorbing information in very short bursts, 2-minute, constantly changing, constantly different, no attention span, and have little interest in going to see a film at a cinema where they can't use their phone or pause the film or talk to each other. That's something that is going to affect takings. I think cinema has a shelf life on it now. I think it's not going to last that much longer. Part 2. It's not me, it's you. There were a number of strikes last year that have significantly affected movie output this year, leading to a noticeable lack of what I would consider to be blockbuster titles. Budgets are out of control. Somehow the Marvels cost $250 million, and it was an embarrassment, an absolute embarrassment. Reshoots bump up the cost of budgets. Executives took a look at the likes of Avatar and Infinity War, making $1 billion. It doesn't matter if we spend $300 million on making a film, because even by the time you added on any marketing and production costs, if we make $1 billion, we're still looking at a net profit of $400 million. It's a lot of money. But the fact of the matter is the films just aren't good enough to warrant that now. Marvel Phase 5 was a complete dud, a non-event. I remember when I went to see Infinity War midnight showing, and the roar that was let up when Captain America finally claimed Mjolnir and said Avengers Assemble it was truly a moment. There's been nothing like it since. Maybe the Spider-Man turning up in Spider-Man No Way Home, which ironically is actually the last time I remember seeing a full cinema for a current release. The big franchises are all failing. Marvel, Star Wars, there's no Harry Potter at the cinema, there's no big franchise to keep things going, to be an event. Barbenheimer was a stroke of genius marketing, but it was an anomaly. It propped up last year's box office. You just can't justify making these huge, wasteful films that are just continually losing studios hundreds of millions of dollars, and the films just aren't good enough. The writing is terrible in most films these days. In fact, the writing is the worst part of movies these days. Generally the special effects are very good because that's where the money goes, but the writing is just awful. Every film that I've seen this year was let down by the writing. The Fall Guy was good fun, adventure, romance, action film. but the writing wasn't the best. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, visually spectacular. The acting, for the most part, was very good. The writing was a little bit dodgy. The same can be said for Furiosa. Perfectly fine film. A good film, I would say. Again, with some good performances. But the writing led to some pacing issues that affected the film. Another thing that we need to look at is the rather diverse elephant in the room, and that is DEI. Diversity, equity and inclusion initiatives. You have to cast a certain amount of this person. You have to hire a certain amount of this person in order for your film to be accepted by the Hollywood community in any way whatsoever. And while I firmly believe in diversity and opportunities for people, this has led to an awful lot of people put into positions that they are not ready for, elevated or fast-tracked in their career to the point where they're making lackluster or mediocre product that is actually going to effectively harm their career because they haven't developed it the way that they should do. They haven't earned their stripes on independence and low budget films. They get thrown into these massive blockbusters straight away. When the product inevitably turns out to be substandard, that affects their career. It's not helping these people. Chris Gore recently said he has a lot of contacts in the industry, obviously. He is the owner of Film Threat magazine, and he says that there are an awful lot of actors, directors, writers that when the census questionnaires go out now, they just tick queer because they don't want to be overlooked. And sexual identity as well as racial makeup are one of the factors when it comes to the diversity and equity inclusion guidebook. So they tick queer because that way they won't be overlooked, that way they won't be ostracised, they will be included, which is shocking, absolutely shocking. On top of that, you need to look at anti-marketing. So many products these days come out with, this is a landmark occasion for this, or this is the first time this has happened, or this is the gayest film ever, or you have the actors themselves coming out and saying, this is a chance to redress the balance, or it's tiresome. It's tiresome. Your virtue signalling is not going to make people see your film. It has categorically and historically not done so far. Try talking about how much fun the film was to make, how much fun it will be to watch, your favourite moments. Try promoting this film. This anti-marketing is just not working. One of the most egregious examples that I can think of was the Dungeons and Dragons film, Honor Among Thieves, which was a good little film. I really enjoyed it. It was a great family film, but the marketing for it, an awful lot of it was focusing on how strong the female characters were, how non-toxically masculine the Chris Pine character of the Bard would be. It was awful marketing, and it's one of the reasons why the film underperformed. When the actual fact is that the film was not what people would call woke. It was anti-marketing. We see so much of it. We see so much of this anti-marketing, and it's not making people see the films. It's not making people want to see the films. It's actually probably putting people off seeing the films because they've seen it and it's all tiresome and it doesn't speak to the quality of the film. Only the messages that the creator wanted to impart into the film are present and correct, and it's not working at all. So they need to stop that. If you have the correct opinion, I'm going back to people ticking queer as a safe bet. It's all mandated now, and it would be fine if the quality of the films was staying the same, but it's not. It's strongly affected what films we get to the detriment of the experience. On top of that, it's all sequels, no originality. Nobody wants to take a chance on original films. They'll naturally fail. The writing quality is awful. Films are too long. Films used to be hour and a half to 2 hours, and you could tell the narrative in that time. You've got a film, you've got a full story, 3-act structure, beginning, middle, end in that time. Now, 2.5 hours, 3 hours, bloated, indulgent. Additionally, there are no event blockbusters anymore. The one I can think of this year would probably be something like Dune. Most films that come out now can be watched on the small screen. As much as I enjoyed Furiosa, as much as I enjoyed The Fall Guy, I can't honestly say that you have to make a trip to the cinema to go see those films. You can wait for them to come out on streaming. And they don't take long to come out on streaming now. That's one of the major problems. Back in the day, if I take you back into the mists of time, used to go down to the local VHS rental place. I'd pick out a movie, my sister would pick out a movie, my parents would pick out a movie. If we had not seen the film at the cinema, it would be 6 months that we'd had to wait to see that film. If we didn't pick it up, it would be another 6 months before it made it to terrestrial TV. That's the gap that there used to be, and maybe 3 or 4 months to get it on Sky. Now, if a film fails at the cinema, it's out on streaming almost straight away because the studio don't want to take any chance of making money for 1 second. The Fall Guy had a lifespan of 2 weeks at the cinema. 2 weeks after it came out, it was out on streaming, which means that you have a instantly available, piratable, torrentable, pristine web copy of that film for people to consume if they don't want your streaming service for any reason. The greed of the studios has led partly to the downfall of this system. People don't have to wait. They don't have to put up with a dodgy cam copy for months and months and months, something that might promote them to go and see the film. Now, just a matter of time. There's plenty of other stuff to consume. Constant stream of movies coming out. Wait a month, it'll be out on streaming, and then it's yours digitally. So, these are all things that have affected cinema attendance, box office takings. Is there anything that can be done about it? Or are the cinemas doomed? My own local cinema chain, Cineworld, went into administration before a buyer was found, and it was looking very likely that they would actually fail. Will we see cinema just disappearing, just gone? It's possible. I think personally that one thing that might happen is a lot of films will now go to streaming. The studio will make the film, spend their budget, then shop the film out to streamers who can then take the film. The studio makes a profit on the production costs, then the streamer picks up any advertising expenditure and the distribution. That's one thing that may well happen. You'll see streaming doing a lot more films, and we've seen that already with quite a few things. Another thing that needs to happen is the budgets have to come down. You cannot have budgets as high as these have been and make a profit at the cinema. That cannot happen. And it's the way that these films are made. What was the difference between Godzilla and these massive blockbusters? The way that the film is made. The effectiveness and efficiency of the production. Companies like Disney, Sony, Fox are very, very bad at making films. There is bloat. There are committees, sensitivity readings, hordes of executive producers. The recent laughable Disney Star Wars series, The Acolyte, had an intimacy coordinator because there was a scene where an actor took off his shirt. Massive writing rooms so that everybody gets in their perspective, which again just leads to a muddied narrative. Too many cooks, that old adage. Budgets have to be reduced, otherwise films are just not going to make a profit. The days of the $1 billion blockbuster are over, I believe that. We will need to keep an eye on films this year like Deadpool, Wolverine, Despicable Me, Beetlejuice, but honestly I don't think I can see any of those making $1 billion. Despicable Me's probably got the best chance. It's a family film, kids will want to go see it, parents will go and take kids to see it because they know that there'll be content for them as well. But I think in general, especially with things like action films and big blockbusters, I just don't see it happening anymore. And I think the other thing that might help cinemas going forward is to re-release old films. I think those are more likely to attract the audience than taking a chance on this new stuff. Go see something that you know is good and see it for the novelty of seeing it on the big screen. An anniversary release of The Thing a couple of years ago was packed. Absolutely packed. It was sold out. So I would think that releasing films like Jurassic Park, Back to the Future trilogy in cinemas, get the novelty of seeing something you've seen on the big screen, get that experience. Get some films that have to be seen on the big screen. Huge, momentous films that only the cinema going experience can try and realise. And I think that's another way that cinemas are probably going to have to go, that it's going to become event things, kind of like the King Charles. It was Prince Charles, I presume it is now King Charles Theatre in London does. They constantly put on old films and they're generally very well attended. And the other thing may well be doing things like Taylor Swift event that made an awful lot of money. Concert films. I went to go see the Ghost film last night, Right Here, Right Now, and that was very well attended because it's like watching the concert without paying for the tickets, and the band performance part of it was absolutely sensational. So yeah, maybe things like that. Maybe more bands will do those kind of things, as certainly ticket prices are absolutely ridiculous these days for most events. So those are just a few of my thoughts regarding what's going on with the cinema, rather tumultuous relationship that we have with it. Is Hollywood on the rocks? Is it all going to end soon and everything's just going to go to streaming? Or is there hope for the cinemas? Let me know down below. I'll be back with another movie review soon. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you later.